Now, one of the new features in Rails 3.1 is template inheritance. Now, this isn't something that's going to revolutionize your views, but it is something that I've been wanting for quite a while in Rails, and it's a nice little thing to have. Let me show you how it works here. So I have this home page here where I have some navigation on the side as well, and I have some products here. And notice on every page that I go to on this simple site, it contains the same navigation on the side. But what if I want to customize this a little bit and change it depending on which controller I'm in the application? Now here's what my application layout file looks like. And notice I have a side section here, which contains the navigation which you saw on every single page of the application. So it's not going to change at all. It's pretty static here inside the layout file. But I want to customize this and override it for each different controller in my app. Now there are a number of ways that we can do this, but here let's do it through template inheritance. And the first step here is to actually move this into a partial. So let's call this, render out a partial here, and let's call it side. And that'll look for a partial called side in each of the controllers. But the question is, where do we place this partial? Because it needs to be accessible from every controller in our application. Some like to create a directory called shared under the views directory. Some people place it under the layouts directory. But in Rails 3.1, we can actually place it under a directory called application, because that is considered the application controller is what every controller inherits from. So we can say application and then create a new file inside of here called side.html.rb. So this is our partial. We could just toss this side content right into here. So now this side partial will be available to all the controllers because the inheritance is in parallel with the controller inheritance. Because every controller inherits from application controller, it'll automatically inherit all templates inside of here. So it'll be just like we had that side partial inside of our other controller template directories here. And now you can see our application still works. We now have the pages section out into a partial that's inherited, but now we can override it easily in each controller. So to do this, we can go under our products views directory and add a new template here for the side partial, and basically just override any of this that we want. In this case, I want to add another link here called manage products, and actually link to an admin section of our products. So an admin products path that I already have set up. So now if I reload the page here, you can see it now has a manage products link. And if I go to specific products, it still shows up because that's in the same controller. But if I go to the home controller or any other controller, it doesn't show up because we're not in the products controller. So I'm really excited about this because now we have a standard location where we can place templates so they're shared across all controllers, and then we can override them as we want to in the specific controllers. Now this works across deep nesting too. For example, I have several controllers in here under an admin namespace. I have a base controller, which if you look at here, just simply inherits from application controller inside the admin namespace. And the other admin controllers just inherit from this admin base controller. So this means I'm able to override certain templates inside the base view as well. For example, if I click on this manage products link, it'll take me to the admin products page, and notice the navigation goes back to normal. So what if I want to override the navigation for all the admin pages? So if we take a look inside the views directory, you can see I have an admin namespace here, admin directory. And inside of here, I have a base directory for that base controller, which is just the abstract admin base controller. And if I place some templates inside of here, they will automatically be inherited by all the other admin controllers. So I can place that side partial in here and then add another link here. Let's say manage categories, and then change it to admin categories path. And so now you can see if I reload this admin page here, we now have managed categories and managed products. And so this will show up the same for every single admin page because it all inherits from the base admin controller. Now template inheritance doesn't just work for partials, it works for any template as well. For example, under the admin categories and products here, I have an edit template, and this happens to be the same for both the categories and products. Notice it's the same template here. So I can actually move this template up into the base controller, and that means I can remove it from any other controllers, and it will just inherit it from that base template. And then you can see if we click on the edit link here, you can see that the edit template still works because it's inherited from the base controller. So this is really awesome because especially if you're doing administration pages where there's a lot of repetition in the views, you can abstract that out into a base controller and then override it as necessary in specific controllers. Now, while we're on this topic of overriding templates, I want to show you one more trick in how you can customize the view depending on certain variables. So let's say you want to change the way the view looks based on something else other than which controller it's in, and you want to override it, such as, for example, let's say we want to provide a mobile domain name that we have this mobile subdomain, and we want to customize the views and override them when that mobile subdomain is present. Well, we can do this through what's called view lookup paths. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm using the PAL web server here because it makes it really easy to manage subdomains and add them in your Rails application in development. So I'll link to that in the show notes. You could try that out if you haven't already. I highly recommend it. Now this feature is not new in Rails 3.1, it actually works in Rails 2 as well, but it goes along with the same topic, so I thought it was worth covering here. Now we have something called view paths in controller. So if we say controller.viewPaths, we can see what our view paths currently look like. By the way, controller is a nice little way from any template to access the current controller. So you can see if we reload this here, here's what our current view paths look like. It just has one view path in here going to our app views directory, but we can add more view paths for it to look up and override the views. Now a good way to customize the view paths is through a before filter. So we can, inside our application controller, say before filter, and we can say subdomain view path, add a private method down here for that. And then in here we want to call prepend view path, and then add our app views, and let's make one called request.subdomain, and then let's add underscore subdomain to it, and then we can just say if our request has a subdomain is present. That way it only adds it when we actually have a subdomain. So now when we reload our view here, you can see that, well, we now have this app views mobile subdomain inside our view path. And if we remove our subdomain at the top here, you can see that it doesn't include it in our view paths. So now we can override views inside that custom view path. So if we create a new views directory here called mobile subdomain, and then we can create another one here, let's override something in the products controller. How about the index action? Let's just say mobile version. So now when we go to the products page without the subdomain, it looks like normal. But if we add the mobile subdomain, you can see we get the mobile version because it overrid that index template for that specific subdomain. Well, that about wraps up this episode on overriding templates, whether it be through inheritance or through the view lookup path. I think both of these solutions offer a lot of customization and ways to abstract out views and override them in unique ways. If you need to do more customization, you can make what's called a view resolver, but I'll probably get into that in a future episode. Anyway, I'll see you next week.